Welcome back, my name's Steve and thank you for joining me on my photography journey. Today I want to talk a little bit more about editing, and I think it's time to start with a small introduction to Photoshop. I don't know about you, but I've definitely been intimidated by Photoshop in the past. It's one of those things that I've always heard about, heard that you can do so many different things, and also things can look really bad if you don't do them properly. So I've always been a little bit put off by it, and then I opened it up. And that scared me even more. There's just so much there. There's so many different tools, there's so many different options, and then working in layers and things like that. It's a whole new world, completely different to using Lightroom. So for this simple introduction, I'm going to use one of the pictures that I've taken on a dog walk and turn it into a panorama on Instagram. You know, one of those ones that you've seen where you can seamlessly swipe between the two pictures and it looks like one continuous image. So let's do that. Let's start in Lightroom Classic. So this should be nice and familiar. I've talked about Lightroom Classic before, so go and have a look at those if you need a bit of an introduction. But what we're going to do is look at the details in there, do some editing, and then go into Photoshop afterwards. So the first thing that we need to do is find a suitable picture in Lightroom. We want a landscape picture. We want something that has a bit of interest on the left, bit of interest on the right, so that when you're swiping between both sides of it, there's something to look at. They both work individually, but they both work as one big picture. Now, this might seem like I've planned it, but look at this picture here. This is exactly what we're after. So you can see on the left-hand side, we've got the trees, we've got the curve of the bank, and then on the right-hand side, we've got the lake, we've got more trees in the background. So together they work quite nicely. You've got branches coming from the left over to the right. And I think this one will look quite nice on Instagram as that seamless swiping. So now that we've got our picture, we need to crop it to make sure it's the right size to use. So we're going to use a 16:10 crop. And all this means is that you've got 16 of one unit across the bottom. So whether that's pixels, centimeters, inches, and then you've got the same units, but 10 of them up the sides. So it's a bit longer than it is tall. The easiest way to think about this is you've got 16 centimeters across the bottom, 10 centimeters up the sides. Now that we've cropped it to that size, what we're going to do is edit that picture as a whole. We want the whole thing to look good, not just the individual sections of it. So let's do that now. Being more familiar with Lightroom than Photoshop, edit everything in Lightroom. You can do it later in Photoshop, but it's definitely much easier to do it now while we're in Lightroom rather than trying to worry about how to do it in Photoshop later. Now we need to import it into Photoshop. So we've done our editing, everything's ready to go. So what we need to do is press Command and E, and that will open it up in Photoshop. I assume it's Control and E on a Windows computer, but I'm using a Mac today. As you can see, this is now loaded up in Photoshop and looks exactly the same as it did in Lightroom. I'm certainly not going to go into detail about all the controls that you can see on the screen here. There's so many controls, there's so many options, there's so many different ways of doing the same thing in Photoshop, which is what makes it so powerful. You can customize it to your own way of working. But I do just want to say there's a lot of information in Photoshop. Adobe has a lot of tutorials. They have so much built into it to help you learn how to do things, what to do, and also YouTube. Go onto YouTube, find other videos. I'll go into a bit more detail in the future if you want. Just leave something down below in the comments and let me know if there's anything in particular that you want me to cover. The first thing that we need to do is create some guides from which we're going to create our two separate images. So this will help us split it into two separate bits. So if you go into View and then Guides and New Guide Layout, you can see that I've already done this. I've already set it up with two columns, no rows, and then no margin between them either. And if you tick this preview box, you'll see that the lines appear on your actual picture, so you know what things will look like, and then just press OK. Now that we've got those guides on there, you can see the two separate pictures that we'll have. So you can see whether they work well on Instagram as individual pictures, and then as that whole picture. So like I said, I like this curve of the lake and the branches coming across, which I think makes it work really well here. Now we need to use the slicing tool, which you can find in the menu on the side. So either press the letter C, that might bring it up for you. What we need to be careful of here is that there's lots of different tools within Photoshop that all have the shortcut C. So on the left hand side, it could well be hidden behind the crop. So you know what the crop tool looks like, it's this kind of square one. So if we press and hold on here, then you get more options for what's behind that tool. And then this is the slice one. So that's the one that we want. Now we've got that, we can see at the top we've got a new menu bar, and on here we want to select slices from guides. So press that, and there we go. You can see two blue icons have now appeared on these pictures, and then the blue lines around them as well, and this just indicates the two different slices that we've cut that picture into. Now we need to export those as two separate pictures. So if you go into File, Export and Save for Web, or of course you could always use the very easy to remember keyboard shortcut, which is Option and Shift and Command and S, which to be honest, I never remember. I just do it from the File menu. And now we've got this pop-up box, so we can make sure that these fit onto the screen. So down in the bottom left-hand corner here, just change that so that we can see the whole thing. As you click on each part of the image, you'll see that the other side, the opacity is reduced a little bit, so you can see which one we're focusing on. And then because we know for Instagram, they use 1350 pixels by 1080 for their portrait orientation ones, we want to make sure that our short edge is 1350 pixels long. So what we need to do then is change the image size. So change the pixels high to 1350, and that makes the width 2160. So that's two 1080 by 1350 pictures next to each other. Simple. Now to save this, we want to make sure that it is as high quality as possible. So we'll set it to a JPEG and the quality at 100, and then we can just hit save. This pop-up is then asking you where to save it. So for ease, I'm just going to save it onto my desktop. And the format is images only. We don't need the HTML data, and we want to save all slices. So press save. Now, looking at your desktop, you can see we have this folder here called images. And in here are these two images that we've just created from that one big picture. The file names are labeled so that they are sequential. Now that we've got those pictures, we want to get them into Instagram. So the easiest way to do that is to open Instagram in your web browser. Alternatively, you could send things to your phone and put it onto Instagram that way. With Apple, that's quite straightforward. I can just airdrop it from one place to the other. Not quite sure how you do that with Windows, but let's use the browser so that everyone can use it. So let's open Instagram first of all. Now we've got create. So go into that, select from computer, and then we want to select both of those pictures that we've just created. Like I said, the files are named so that they are sequential, so they should come up in the right order, but just double check. And we just want to make sure that it's in the original aspect ratio. And there we go, we can check that the pictures are in the right order. Then you can put the description, any hashtags or anything like that, and then press post. And now you can have a look at your post, either online or on your phone, and just swipe across it and see how seamless it looks. And it looks good, doesn't it? And that was using Photoshop. So it's nice and straightforward when you know how to do it. There's lots in there. You don't have to use everything all at once. That's the key thing. Just use what you need for that particular project that you're doing at the moment. So if you want me to cover anything else in Photoshop, just let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you again next week on my photography journey. Have a great week. Bye.